Let me start by congratulating the champion of the rusty bog moss on securing this debate and add my thanks to my intern, Shane O'Brien, who's done some research for me and provided me with today's speaking notes. I didn't just conform to stereotypes because we're from Ireland and I thought it would be a natural fit. Peat is, of course, as others have said, a commodity that we need to protect. Particularly in Scotland, where we have vast rural areas that are covered by it. We have about 10% of the world's blanket bog, and with the raised bog, these are important parts of our ecosystems. It is, in global terms, a somewhat rare commodity, which is, of course, one of the particular reasons that we should protect it. Now, others have made reference to the climate mitigation benefits that are derived from peat. Very important indeed. Scotland, I think, is a special place because of the proportion of peat that we have. I'm a little uncertain, and perhaps the Minister can clarify for me, whether the calculation of our carbon impact is fully taking account of the contribution that peat makes to the mitigation of the effects of human activity on our climate, which might be further incentive for us to look closely at this subject. Now, of course, peat was originally essentially a domestic heating product. It's now not a particularly common one. In fact, I'm not aware of whether there is a single house in Scotland that is solely reliant on peat for its warmth, but I may find that there are small numbers. Certainly we can accept not at all any significant numbers, and Sean, in doing his research for me, found that there were certainly none on Uist. I'm not quite sure why he found that, but he did. Now, of course, it was a comparatively cheap fuel. It was a comparatively available fuel. It was on the doorsteps of many people in parts of Scotland. And with other primary sources of fuel like coal, oil, electricity, peat was at one time among our most important fuel sources. And of course, the method of producing peat was the back-breaking task of cutting out the peat from the peat banks, latterly by using a machine, taking smaller slabs as tractors dragged it across, increasing the exploitation, of course, and increasing the damage that we're doing to our peat bogs. I will.
For taking this intervention. I wanted to focus on horticultural peat and not on the extraction of peat for heating homes, because it's a small part and the extraction for horticulture is a very large industry.
Stewart Stevenson.
The member is, of course, quite correct to focus on that. It's important that we do recognise that peat is something that's been used for a variety of purposes. The debate today focusing, as it does, on horticultural peat, which we continue to use long after we've passed on from peat as a fuel. The bottom line is that peat is valuable to us. It has effects on our everyday lives. When we take it out for horticultural produce, we do diminish the ability of peat to contribute in other areas of our lives. Claudia Beamish referred to its filtering effects and benefits to the water supply. And of course, for those of us who enjoy the occasional malt whisky, we particularly benefit from the use of some small amount of peat in that industry. But I think more interestingly, the existence of peat bogs touches very significantly on natural ways of mitigating the effects of flooding. So when we extract peat for horticulture, it has much wider effects than perhaps many of our urban dwellers are likely to be aware of. They will participate in recreational use of peatlands, angling, walking, a uniquely Scottish experience. So, Presiding Officer, I hope that the Government will look to reducing the use of peat in compost. The damaging impacts need to be reduced. We need to substitute peat in our horticultural products, and I give all my support to the motion that Rob Gibson has brought to us today. Presiding Officer.